buzzard.
She was the teenager who bewitched Elvis. She's now a financial success story. When the king died, nearly all his fortune had been squandered. Tonight, Priscilla Presley talks about how she built a multi-million-dollar empire and takes you inside the home and the life she shared with Elvis.
He was a daredevil, and he definitely liked to scare people. He was like a kid, and he loved to play.
For 51 days, the world wondered what really was going on inside the compound at Waco. Tonight, for the first time, we'll show you.
How much you love me? How much?
Primetime has obtained exclusive videotapes taken during the siege. Pictures of David Koresh and his children.
Thank you. Okay, go mama.
All of whom died when the compound went up in flames.
I'm talking to you. Somebody's gonna get hurt.
From ABC News, with anchors Diane Sawyer in New York, Sam Donaldson in Washington, chief correspondent Chris Wallace, Judd Rose, Sylvia Chase, John Quinones, and Renee Pousson. This is Prime Time.
There are those among us with very simple tastes. They only want the best. And for them, there's Fancy Feast gourmet cat food. Exceptionally moist and delicious. Fancy Feast. Good taste is easy to recognize.
To fight gum disease, Colgate Precision has 3 sets of bristles. One like a flat brush for the surface, another like a rippled brush to reach between, and a third designed like nothing else to sweep plaque from the gum line. Fighting gum disease takes precision.
As the amount you spend with your Discover card goes up, your interest rate goes down with the Smart Rate program. So use the Discover card, where the percentages are always in your favor. And when it comes to Smart Rate, it pays to look for your pre-approved Discover card application. Sign it and send it back, because you can't get Smart Rate until you get your card. It pays to Discover, the card that pays you back.
I don't know why I love you like I do. I don't know why, I just do. I don't know why you thrill me like you do. I don't know why.
Introducing new Ragu Super Vegetable Primavera. You're gonna love it.
My name is Bond.
Saturday.
James Bond.
Kim Basinger is taking Sean Connery on the ride of his life.
Never again.
Never say never again.
Never?
Saturday, parental discretion advised.
Gil Jones is about to get a big surprise from his daughter.
You want to move in?
Only if it works for you.
It doesn't. From the producers of Home Improvement.
Harry!
Edward Asner stars in a new comedy. Funderelli, premiering Wednesday.
Prime Time. Now from New York, Diane Sawyer.
Good evening. We're glad you're with us. Police officers are trained to watch out for dangers on the street. But what happens if there's another danger? A threat from your own side. Tonight, female cops on the Los Angeles police force who say they were raped by their fellow officers. Judd Rose investigates, talking to some women who have never told their stories publicly before.
Meet the class of '94. New recruits entering the Los Angeles Police Academy. There are 40 in this class, only a dozen of them female. Which isn't so surprising when you consider that the LAPD has 7,700 officers in all, of which only 1,200, just 15%, are women. Chief Willie Williams drops by to welcome the new class.
Take a seat. That sign right outside the gate as you come in says, through these gates enter the world's finest police officers. And you've just joined our team, and I just want to say thank you.
But on a team that has a reputation for being macho, almost paramilitary at times, just how welcome are women?
The culture is that women should not be a part of LAPD.
Sergeant Carol Aborn is a 10-year veteran of the LAPD. As past president of the Women Police Officers Association, she's heard countless reports of sexual harassment.
How bad has it gotten for some of these women?
It's destroyed their lives. It has truly destroyed some women's lives.
It killed a lot inside me, and I did not appreciate him touching me. And then I heard his voice. He asked me if I liked it and if it felt good.
They did everything they could to destroy my career, my professional reputation.
Bitter stories like these are not uncommon in the LAPD. Stories of male cops tormenting female officers with everything from lewd comments to rape. Carol Sobel is an attorney with the ACLU.
I personally know of at least 10 or 11 complaints that have been made in the last 4 years. I think any employer who had that many rapes alleged to have occurred would think that they had a serious problem. And in terms of sex harassment, I think it is rampant throughout the department.
In the last few years, 3 different watchdog groups have reached the same conclusion. One reported that harassment in the LAPD happens more often and tends to be worse than for women in other city jobs.
The men and women
How bad? We'll take the case of Susie Campbell, a respected cop. She was recently honored by the chief for her good work.
Good job, well done.
Susie Campbell's pride in wearing the badge was born here at the LA Police Academy, and this is also where it very nearly died. One night 3 years ago, Susie was one of a group of officers celebrating some promotions at the Academy Bar just up the hill. Now, she didn't have a reputation as a hard partier, but there was a lot of drinking going on that night, and Susie admits she had more than her share. Well, at some point, an officer that she didn't know joined the group. And then, at closing time, well past midnight, he followed her over there to the parking lot. By the time Campbell got to her car, she felt sick, so she went to a nearby bathroom on the Academy grounds, entered a stall, and bent over to vomit. She admits she was close to passing out when she says suddenly someone turned off the lights. Campbell didn't yet know that Officer Ernest Hill had followed her in.
I just blanked out because my next recollection was of my chest being banged up against the water tank, and at that time, Hill was already having sexual intercourse with me.
Campbell felt she'd left herself vulnerable by drinking so much. Ashamed, she waited 5 weeks to report the incident. When she finally did, Internal Affairs found enough evidence to bring Hill before a trial board. But the final decision is with the chief, who was then Daryl Gates, and he decided there would not be a trial. So Campbell went to the LAPD Women's Advocate for help. Instead, she says, she got a warning.
She did stress if I chose to pursue this, they would have to charge me with lewd conduct in public place, excessive intoxication as well.
Well, let me get this straight. They don't want to pursue any action against the man you accused of raping you, but they would charge you with lewd misconduct.
They would have to charge both. In order to charge him, they'd have to charge me as well.
Eventually, the police commission pressured Chief Gates to review his decision. So, Officer Hill went before a trial board, and he was fired.
Hill violated me in the worst way. But the department betrayed me, and they broke my heart.
Was it handled the way it should have been? Probably not, but it wasn't on my watch.
You can't stop it from happening, but can you guarantee that the response will be better than it was when you were not here?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be better. No ifs, no ands, no buts about it.
As part of an effort to get that message across, Williams says harassment has been given a new emphasis in officer training. So, the class of '94 will spend 152 hours on self-defense, 121 hours on the shooting range, 62 hours on the law, and 4 hours on sexual harassment. Critics say that's too little, too late.
You get your highfalutin principles in the academy, but when you come into the department, you learn about the code of silence, you learn about the hazing of females, you learn the real ways of the LAPD.
Consider the case of a senior male detective and his female partner who wants to remain anonymous. Now, she claims that he harassed her relentlessly over 10 months' time. It was, she says, an endless stream of demeaning abuse and sexual innuendo. An especially bad incident happened at this restaurant where one day, when she bent down to pick a napkin off the floor, her partner pushed her head toward his crotch. Later, describing it in her diary, she recalls he said, "I thought that's what you wanted." After an investigation, the LAPD concluded that the incident did in fact occur. But incredibly, the male officer was not disciplined. In part, the department said, because there was no evidence that he'd received any sexual gratification. That also happened while Gates was chief. When Williams came in, he reopened the case, but since the accused officer had been cleared already, he couldn't be recharged. Instead, he was suspended for other similar acts of misconduct.
But the fact that the board came to that staggering conclusion that there was no harassment because he wasn't sexually gratified, what kind of message does that send to the troops here in the department?
It sends two bad messages. It sends a message to some of our women that you cannot expect the department to support you. It also sends a message to a lot of the male members who feel that they may be offenders or choose to be offenders, that you don't have to worry about the system.
Case in point, Cindy Juarez. Juarez says she was victimized so badly and for so long, she spent half of her 10 years on the job home on sick leave. Many of the incidents happened in front of superior officers who did nothing.
I felt so helpless, hopeless. I felt like my career had gone down the drain. I felt that I couldn't get help to any of this.
It began her second year on the job when Juarez was assigned to the Central Division Vice Squad. Typical was an incident where two patrol officers grabbed her and forcibly pulled her into this elevator in the police station.
They said something to the effect that, you know, Cindy, we want to see those babies, and they were referring to my breasts.
They hurt you?
Yes, they did. They grabbed my arm, my wrist. And I was struggling with him, and by this time I'm almost screaming, let me go, let me go. I was terrified.
Another incident that took place here in Vice has become department legend. An officer who over many months had repeatedly taunted and touched Juarez came up behind her.
And he said, have you ever seen a Mexican earthquake? And he shook my shoulders so that my breasts were moving quite a bit. I couldn't believe it.
Others apparently could. There were two witnesses, including a supervisor, who ignored it.
Apparently he said he didn't see or hear anything.
But you did go to your lieutenant to complain.
I did.
And what happened?
He said, Cindy, if you pursue this, it's going to follow you. It's going to affect your career.
The constant harassment, coupled with feeling powerless to stop it, took a severe toll on Juarez. Her son, Nick, just 10 at the time, watched as his mother suffered a complete physical and emotional collapse.
There was a period where she would cry all day. I mean, you couldn't even, her eyes would get so swollen where you couldn't even see her right. I mean, you couldn't even look at her. I mean, she was just in a daze.
When Juarez went back to work at another division, it began again. Juarez says this officer, Hugo Trujillo, began making lewd remarks and spreading rumors behind her back. It built up to an ugly scene in the police locker room where Trujillo beat up another cop who stood up for Juarez.
All through this whole process, and nobody was ever willing to respond and do anything for you, help you.
The supervisor said, I'll talk to them. It's no big deal.
Hugo Trujillo was suspended for the locker room fight, but he's appealing it and is still on the job. Cindy Juarez is back on stress leave. Police psychologist Nancy Baker.
And each of those incidents by themselves might be no big deal. But when you put together, you know, this day after day after day, event after event, then it becomes really, really traumatic and really debilitating.
A lot of times it's the incidents themselves do not destroy the women. It's the process that pushes them over the edge.
Teresa Wallen says that's exactly what pushed her over the edge. 3 years ago, Wallen was at a party with other officers. It was late, and a cop she'd never met before gave her a ride home. He came in, she says, they talked, and he left. But he returned, she says, to rape her.
Sometime after I was in bed, I heard the door open, and a voice said, oh, it's just me, I forgot my jacket, and I recognized it as the officer that had left.
Did he say anything, or he just jumped you?
During the attack, he said things to me. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. Never did I think another officer would hurt me, but he did.
But Wallen didn't report it.
I knew my career would be over. Here he was, a 13-year veteran, and here I was, a nobody with 3 years on the job, and I didn't stand a chance. You know, who are they going to believe?
Worth wondering. After an anonymous tip, Internal Affairs began to investigate. Among those questioned was Joe Walker, a friend of Wallen's who works for the Sheriff's Department.
But they often would ask me, was she into kinky sex? Was she into bondage? Were you aware if she was promiscuous or not? Were you aware of other men she was dating? I told them over and over, I had no knowledge about that. We were just friends.
Ironically, those kinds of questions are illegal for police to use with civilians.
You tell me whether you could do these things if you were investigating a rape. They tried to find old love letters to an ex-boyfriend and photos of you. Could you do that?
No.
They tried to pick up your phone bills, and they asked other friends of yours whether you had sexual relationships with them. Could you do that?
No. None of those things.
Finally, Wallen got her day in court, a Board of Rights hearing. The board, made up of 3 LAPD captains, met here at police headquarters to weigh all the evidence. But in the end, it came down to what the cops call one-on-one. Her word against his, and the board believed him.
He claimed Wallen had agreed to sex. The board found him not guilty of rape. Now, this case, like others we've told you about, happened before Willie Williams was brought in to reform the LAPD. Today, he says he's cracking down on sexual harassment, citing as an example the investigation now going on of a division notorious for abusive treatment of female officers.
We're not sweeping it under the rug. We're going to deal with it. We're going to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we're going to make change.
But Williams has been chief for over a year and a half, long enough, his critics say, to have done more.
I don't think he's doing the best he can. The women in this department don't have any more time. The LAPD has to comply with the law like every other employer in the state.
Even more so, really, because they are the guardians of those laws. For any woman victimized by extreme harassment, it must be cold comfort to know that the police who promise to protect and serve them haven't even been able to protect their own.
You should know that the male officers accused of sexual harassment or rape refuse to talk to us. Also, all of the female officers in our report either have sued or are planning to sue the Los Angeles Police Department. And while all the suits seek money, the women say their real goal is to make the LAPD more responsive to complaints like these in the future.
But I can't. In a moment, the Elvis legacy. How Priscilla Presley turned around his nearly bankrupt estate, creating a multi-million-dollar business. But first, the California earthquake that was felt as far away as the East Coast.
It comes as a great shock to me that the Los Angeles earthquake was felt all the way to Pennsylvania Station in New York.
Turning natural disasters into pork barrel legislation. When Primetime continues.
In just 1 year, something happened to 640 million pounds of chemical pollutants. Instead of becoming waste, they were captured for recycling. The members and partners of the Chemical Manufacturers Association, working for change.
The Energizer battery. It keeps going and going.
You never know when road conditions will change, at what speed wheels can slip. So the Cadillac Eldorado's standard traction control operates at any speed. The Lincoln Mark 8's optional traction assist deactivates at 35 miles an hour, proving the Eldorado runs circles around the competition in these performance terms and these financial ones. The Cadillac Eldorado, creating a higher standard.
They did it again. Color Tile beat our prices again.
This time they're giving 40, 50, 60% price cuts.
How do they do it?
We're doing it big at Color Tile's biggest sale of the year. Stainmaster Plus, $9.99 installed. Every Congolium sheet vinyl on sale. Ceramic tile up to 60% off. Wood parquet, 32 cents. Wall covering, $2.99. Mini blinds, buy one, get 4 free. Color Tile's biggest sale of the year. 40, 50, 60% price cuts. Sale ends Monday.
Color Tile beat our prices again.
29 women accused him of sexual misconduct. Now, for the first time, Senator Robert Packwood responds face-to-face. My exclusive interview, 2020, Friday.
Now there's more. Last week, Day One opened the government's eyes to how cigarette makers may keep smokers hooked. This week, new information cigarette companies don't want you to know. Don't miss Day One with Forrest Sawyer, Monday at 8, 7 Central.
Primetime continues. Now from Washington, Sam Donaldson.
We're back with more Washington Waste. Tonight, another chapter from the pork barrel. Now, when members of Congress spend your money for their pet projects, they don't call their bill the pork barrel. Too obvious. No, they call it by a name they hope no one will recognize. How inventive can they be? Our chief correspondent, Chris Wallace, has found a bill that takes the cake in the pork barrel masquerade. This one is called, would you believe, Earthquake Relief.
The California earthquake last January was the costliest disaster in U.S. history. 57 dead, 20,000 left homeless, and more than $13 billion in damage. Less than a month later, President Clinton signed an emergency package that Congress had rushed through to help the victims.
I'm glad to be signing it today, and I'm glad that the benefits will begin to flow tomorrow.
But it turns out the benefits did not flow just to California. The $8.6 billion earthquake bill was really $11 billion for a lot of projects. There were other so-called emergencies, such as money to help finance peacekeeping operations in Somalia. And some spending wasn't for emergencies at all, including more than $1 million to hire lawyers to defend the Senate in sex harassment and job discrimination cases. How did that stuff get in there? The earthquake bill was an opportunity that was just too good to resist. Members of Congress tacked on various projects, some of them clearly pork for the folks back home, knowing the emergency package must be passed in a hurry. It's a case study of how this town continues to do business. Meet West Virginia Senator Robert Byrd, who's been called the king of pork. After becoming chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee in 1989, he vowed to get $1 billion in federal projects for his state. He met that target in 2 years. For instance, he used an emergency package after floods in the Southwest to move the FBI fingerprint lab from Washington to West Virginia. Cost $185 million.
A lot of what those peckerwoods up there glibly call pork is infrastructure.
How powerful is Byrd? We found his Senate colleagues didn't want to talk about him on camera. But over in the House, Iowa Congressman Jim Nussle was willing.
Well, he holds the checkbook. The checkbook is in his hip pocket. So if he writes your project, he whips out his checkbook and he'll write you a check. Otherwise, you don't get your special project.
Nussle said they even have a name on Capitol Hill for what happens when you oppose the senator.
And that's Byrd's revenge.
The California earthquake gave Byrd another chance to work his magic. The president asked for disaster relief, partially offset by $3.2 billion in spending cuts. But when Byrd's committee got a hold of the bill, it added another administration package of $1 billion in unrelated spending. Freshman Senator Russell Feingold of Wisconsin didn't like it.
Now, maybe for some members of this body, this is just business as usual. This is the way you do it. You wait for a natural disaster, and then you've got your items that you want to spend money on, you tack them on there. The bill has to pass because it's a disaster.
Buried among the many provisions of the bill were special projects for some of the Senate's most powerful members. Majority Leader George Mitchell's home state of Maine got $1.4 million to help his potato farmers fight a crop disease, although it's a problem across the country. Ernest Holling's state of South Carolina got $1.5 million to repair a commercial ship at the Maritime Museum in Charleston. And New York, home of Daniel Patrick Moynihan, got $10 million to renovate Penn Station. Arizona Senator John McCain was disturbed by all the add-ons.
I follow the news very carefully, but it comes as a great shock to me that the Los Angeles earthquake was felt all the way to Pennsylvania Station in New York.
Senators expressed their objections, but time after time, Byrd beat them down.
Mr. President, I hope that the Senate will not adopt the amendment. Not to adopt this amendment. I oppose it and hope that the Senate...
Byrd's committee did propose cuts of $3.4 billion to pay for some of the new spending. But when other senators called for even deeper cuts, they got a glimpse of Byrd's revenge.
The fact of the matter is we are not going to collect enough money to pay the bills.
Nebraska Senator Robert Kerry proposed $94 billion in savings. Byrd swatted the amendment aside, comparing himself to former heavyweight champion Riddick Bowe.
Sometimes we bend over a little bit too much around here to accommodate senators. And there comes a time when the fellow who crawls into the ring with the champ, he has to take his chances with the same gloves that Mr. Bowe uses. And that's where we are now. We're in the ring.
Sure enough, Byrd KO'd the amendment. Another opponent was Senator McCain, who targeted one of Congress's favorite pieces of pork, $2.2 billion worth of previously approved pet highway projects.
Billions of dollars in projects that are unauthorized, that have no competition associated with it, no scrutiny.
Now McCain got a taste of Byrd's revenge. His office suddenly started receiving a flood of calls from voters in Arizona, telling him not to kill local road projects.
We asked them who they were hearing from, and they said that they were hearing from people who were with the Appropriations Committee.
Senator Byrd's committee mobilizing a lobbying campaign back from Arizona to get you to call off the dog.
Exactly.
McCain's amendment was defeated. But Byrd wasn't finished yet. Shortly before the final vote on the earthquake bill, he introduced a late amendment, agreed to by leaders of both parties, but no one else. Remember the FBI fingerprint lab that he moved to West Virginia? Now, he wanted $20 million to hire 500 workers for the lab. But Byrd never mentioned any of this on the Senate floor.
I ask unanimous consent that reading the amendment be dispensed with, that a statement in support of it appear in the record.
That was it. Nothing about the FBI or 500 jobs or $20 million in taxpayers' money.
No one knew about it except for the managers of the bill on the floor of the Senate, and we read about it in the bill afterwards when it was published.
$20 million in that bill you voted on, you never knew was there?
Never. Not until I read the bill day before yesterday.
And no debate, no real consideration, $20 million for West Virginia?
$20 million. And as sad as this is to say, $20 million is really not a lot of money around here.
We tried to get an interview with Byrd for more than a week. His staff said he was too busy, leading the fight against a constitutional amendment to balance the budget. They did send us a prepared statement, though, that defended his late amendment, saying the FBI was in danger of building a state-of-the-art facility without the employees to run it. But we still had questions for Senator Byrd. So we went out to his house one morning and found him walking his dog. Senator? Hi, Chris Wallace from ABC News. How are you, sir? Can you just tell us why you put the FBI Fingerprint Center funding in the California earthquake bill?
I don't carry on my business over here at the house. I work at the office. I put full time in there for my constituents.
I know, sir. And we tried to get you at your office, but they said you wouldn't talk to us there.
I'm busy.
Byrd said to try him again at his office. So we did, when he arrived at the Capitol later that morning. There's a question here about spending millions of dollars of taxpayers' money.
That's perfectly all right.
We want to ask you about it.
Well, I'll be happy to answer. But when I'm ready.
Byrd agreed to an interview, but later his staff said he changed his mind. Instead, he went to the Senate floor, where for the next 27 minutes, he gave us a sample of Byrd's revenge.
I have decided against an interview with Mr. Wallace, because I do not believe that my views on that program would get a fair airing and would more than likely end up on the cutting room floor. Now they come out to my house. Come out to my house. Vultures. Buzzards. I don't know what my little dog Billy may have thought of you.
Estimates are that it cost taxpayers more than $1,000 for Byrd to take up a half hour of the Senate's time. Another sign, according to one senator, that for all the talk of reform, this institution still does business the old way.
This is not the first emergency bill that has been larded up with pork barrel projects. And unfortunately, as I sit here, I am sure it will not be the last.
By the way, some members of Congress have formed what they call the Pork Busters Coalition. And tomorrow they plan to introduce legislation that would kill all the pork provisions attached to the Los Angeles earthquake bill. Good luck.
Still ahead, tonight's parting shot. What on earth is this man doing? But first, she was Elvis's teenage love. Today, she's a successful businesswoman, Priscilla Presley. Also, a Primetime exclusive. For the first time, pictures of David Koresh and his children from inside the Waco compound during the siege. When Primetime continues, after this from our ABC stations.
This is an Eyewitness News Brief. Now here's John Drury.
Good evening. Coming up at 10, a cocaine sting. Police get their man and a surprise. The accused dealer is a policeman. Also, Prince Charles in danger again. Police disarm a man with a knife. And what could be a real fountain of youth? New information about the power of vitamins. Then drama in the air. A pilot falls asleep at the wheel. You'll see the home video. Plus, Ebert's review of Greedy, starring Michael J. Fox. Join Marianne Childers and me tonight at 10.
I can't drive this, which is why I don't drive most minivans. Except for one, Mercury Villager. It's different. It drives just like a car.
Villager offers versatile 7-passenger seating, front-wheel drive, standard driver's side airbag, ABS brakes, and meets all government safety standards for passenger cars.
Maybe that's why it's outselling every import competitor. Mercury Villager. Now you don't have to drive a truck to drive a minivan. At your Lincoln Mercury dealer now.
It's hard to believe, but the first flights used to set down in La Crosse, Madison, and Milwaukee on the way to Chicago. It took nearly 4 hours, give or take an hour. Now, we're the #1 on-time airline for the 4th year in a row.
Your flight's on time.
It's just one more thing you don't have to worry about.
Some people just know how to fly.
Thinking about a nursing home for someone you love is never easy. But this book, When Love Gets Tough, The Nursing Home Decision, can help. For your free copy, call Americana Healthcare Centers with 18 locations in Illinois. 800-800-CARE.
He was one of the world's richest entertainers. Elvis Presley generated more than $2 billion in his lifetime. But when he died, he left an estate in shambles. As Renee Poussaint explains, who would have expected that the teenager who lived in Elvis's shadow would one day return to Graceland and save his legacy?
Well, it's one for the money, two for the show. But you get ready now, go, cat, go, but don't you step on my blue suede shoe.
He was a 50s dreamboat.
But stay over my blue suede shoe. Bright light said it's gonna set my
a 60s superstar.
soul on fire. Wise men say only fools.
A 70s tragedy. And in the 90s, he remains the king of rock and roll and of revenue.
5506.
Every year, Americans spend millions of dollars on their enduring fascination with Elvis. And that's just fine with the woman who divorced him in 1973, but still uses his name, Priscilla Presley.
No one anywhere can produce something that has Elvis's name on it without your permission.
That's right.
That's a lot of control.
That's a lot. And it should be. It should be that way.
Elvis's child bride has learned a lot about control.
We're going to really expand the Moments line.
She's a multi-millionaire in her own right, with a TV production company, a perfume line, and a best-selling memoir.
With all my heart.
She's appeared on the TV show Dallas and on the big screen.
Will you stay with me? Please.
But her greatest success has been creating a fortune for someone else, her child, taking charge of the financially troubled estate Elvis Presley left their daughter, Lisa Marie. She was only 9 years old when her father died in 1977.
Were you surprised at how little was left?
Very surprised. Very surprised. I mean, I never got involved with his financial situation, and when he did die, and we were allowed to see, you know, what was left and what was there, it was a shock.
He would give Cadillacs, just like everybody else would give away a tie at Christmas.
Well, that's all right, Mama.
His best friend, George Klein, says Elvis never thought the money supply would end.
He gave away homes. He gave away trips to Hawaii. He gave away cash money, just $10,000 at a time. Gave away jewelry that, like, you wouldn't believe.
When he died, he left only Graceland and a few $1 million in cash. Taxes and upkeep on the mansion threatened to wipe out Lisa Marie's inheritance. Ironically, lots of other people were making money on the ghost of Elvis, even right across the street from Graceland.
Weren't they at one point selling something that was supposed to be Elvis's sweat?
No, that's what they said. I mean, if you bought that, I'm sorry, but that, you know, that's your fault.
In the years after Elvis's death, Priscilla, as Lisa Marie's guardian, took control. She successfully fought for state legislation to ban the profiteers. She organized Elvis's treasure trove of personal belongings. Even his plane came home to Graceland. But her decision to open Graceland, Elvis's home and final resting place, was controversial.
You got some resistance from some people about that, didn't you?
I got a lot of resistance.
Why?
It's almost sacred in a way that people look at Elvis and look at his home, which I can understand because I had those same feelings.
I had to explain that to quite a bit of the inner circle of Elvis's friends. Lisa has to live her life, and in order for her to sustain herself and Priscilla to sustain it for Lisa, it has to be run as a business.
Were you scared?
Yes, I was scared. It was a very, very big project to take on. Graceland was my home, too. You know, opening up Graceland was opening up my life as much as it was Elvis's.
Did you meet anyone special in Germany?
Not any special one. There was a little girl that I was seeing quite often over there, but it was no big romance.
Love me tender.
But in fact, it turned out to be a notorious romance. Elvis fell for Priscilla when she was 14 during his stint in the Army. Her father, an Air Force officer, was stationed in Germany. Within 3 years, Elvis convinced her parents to let her come to Graceland.
Sometimes he would drive me to school in a limo, which caused way too much attention. So I asked him not to take me to school in a limousine. I wanted to drive myself to school.
She eventually did start driving herself in Elvis's white Lincoln Continental, now perfectly restored and on display with the rest of his car collection, including the pink Cadillac he gave his mother. The purple one he drove himself.
Although it's always crowded, little sister, don't you?
For Priscilla, it was a topsy-turvy existence in a lavish cocoon, attending a Catholic girls' school all day, staying up all night with Elvis and his friends.
You look like an angel.
Elvis transformed the schoolgirl into an outwardly much older glamour queen, dictating her hairstyles, her clothes, her makeup. For Priscilla, it was all a fantasy, but most of all, it was fun.
Saddle up the horses and race out in the front and attract, you know, all kinds of people on the front gates. He was a daredevil, and he definitely liked to scare people. I mean, he was like a kid. I mean, he loved to play. He wasn't the best diver. He did a lot of belly flops, and rarely did he make the dive that he bragged about. That was one thing I could do better than he could.
I gotta sing about you, baby.
5 years after she came to Graceland, they were married. The next year, Lisa Marie was born. It was 1968. Personally, Elvis had found happiness, but professionally, he was worried. The Beatles were hot, and Elvis's record sales had sunk to an all-time low. That year, Elvis made his famous '68 comeback special.
If you're looking for trouble, you came to the right place.
I remember him being a nervous wreck that night that it was going to air. He hadn't appeared on stage nor had he sung in front of an audience for years, and he was back on television again.
We're caught in a trap.
And back on the road. In the last 3 years of their marriage, Elvis performed 500 concerts. Priscilla was left behind.
Is your wife Priscilla with you?
No, she's not.
Maybe I didn't treat you.
The intense control of her life she'd welcomed as a teenager, she could no longer accept as an adult. She divorced him in 1973.
You lost your identity when you were around Elvis Presley because people only focused in on Elvis. She wanted to do things and to get out of that fishbowl situation.
They remained friends, but Elvis began spiraling down a path of self-destruction, overweight, in a haze of uppers and downers. On August 16, 1977, he collapsed on a bathroom floor at Graceland, dead at 42. After he was buried at Graceland, Elvis fever only seemed to grow. Each year, 500,000 fans pay up to $16 each to tour his home. With the profits from Graceland and royalties from licensing, Priscilla Presley has secured her daughter's future. Lisa Marie, at 26, is a very wealthy young woman with a very low profile. Her focus, her marriage and 2 children.
Do you see passing the business on to her?
You know, she should have her own life and her career. If there's a time, you know, that she wants to totally be, you know, involved and have this only, it's there. I mean, we're in the meetings together. She knows what's going on.
Priscilla runs Elvis Presley Enterprises from Los Angeles. Surprisingly, her office contains no mementos of her life with Elvis. In fact, no hint of Elvis at all.
It gets in the way. It gets in the way of who I am.
She has a new life with 6-year-old son Neverone and his father, Marco Garibaldi.
I have to take in consideration their feelings. You know, I have a son who's 6 years old. I don't want him coming into my office and seeing pictures of my past or, you know, my life with Elvis.
For some people, you will always be the little girl with the beehive hairdo. How do you feel about that?
I feel okay with it. I don't have anything against it. I mean, there are some people who really hold on to those images and who hold on to the past in many ways.
Well, that's all right, Mama. That's all right for you.
And for all those people holding on to the past, Priscilla is holding on to the future.
All right. That's all right. That's all right, Mama. Anyway, do.
And so it seems Elvis Presley may make more money in death than he did when he was alive. As for Priscilla Presley, her latest movie, Naked Gun 33 1/3, opens March 18th.
Coming up, a Primetime exclusive. Never-before-seen pictures of David Koresh and his children before the fire that killed them. When Primetime continues.
But my cat's healthy. Should I be concerned?
Is a cat's urinary tract health important?
Don't overlook cat's urinary tract health. Serve your cat Purina Cat Chow Special Care brand cat food. It's specially formulated to help maintain a cat's urinary tract health.
I love my cat, and I give him the best I can.
Cat Chow Special Care. Special care for your special cat.
Ah, yes. If you have an urgent document that has to get from America over to Europe on time, as promised, or your hitherto happy career is kaput, finito, in a word, toast, don't use the biggest, most trusted delivery company in America. Use the biggest, most trusted delivery company in Europe. Thank you. UPS. Nobody's faster to Europe's business centers.
It's the dawn of a new generation. The
new generation of clean gasoline. A breakthrough in technology from Texaco that can clean up over time what came before. An advanced system of engine cleaning in every octane grade for the highest performance, lower emissions, and improved mileage. Texaco introduces the gasoline that's changing what gasoline can do. New Clean System 3. Give us 60 days and watch what can happen.
Okay, 2 scoops of raisins make Kellogg's Raisin Bran taste so good, people forget it's good for you. What do you think?
It's delicious.
And?
It tastes good.
That's the same reason.
He stole my answer.
And it's not an answer.
I agree with them. It tastes great.
Okay. You got the first part right. Kellogg's Raisin Bran tastes good, but...
Good for us!
There are 2 reasons to eat Kellogg's Raisin Bran. The taste.
And?
Ice dancers dazzle at the Durasoft Colors World Challenge of Champions, plus Women's World Cup skiing and the Santa Anita Handicap. Saturday on ABC's Wide World of Sports.
The story of the Donner Party has fascinated us for over 100 years. What really happened, the hardship, the horror, the heroism, is beyond anything you could ever imagine.
I will not let you leave us, do you hear me?
Meredith Baxter, One More Mountain, Sunday.
You may recall nearly 2 months ago, we brought you an hour on the showdown in Waco, Texas. Well, tonight, through federal sources, we have obtained 2 videotapes made inside the compound while the siege was underway. They exist because the FBI asked David Koresh to make the tapes so negotiators could have some confirmation of the condition of those inside, especially the children. You'll remember as the standoff continued, 21 children were released from the compound.
They're walking towards the gate.
They're walking toward the gate and they're walking.
But Koresh said he would not send out the remainder, his biological and adopted children. They would stay inside the compound until the firestorm brought their death.
Wave at the camera.
These are the last remaining images of David Koresh and those children. This tape was sent out to the FBI on March 8th, a week after the raid. We see a wounded and weakened Koresh. Another Davidian, Steve Schneider, is holding the camera.
We just thought we'd kind of break the ice and allow people to see just exactly, what kind of people we have here. I'd like to start off, first of all, with my oldest son. His name is Cyrus. Come sit over here, son. How old are you?
7.
7. Hug each other. Hug each other, kids. It's good. Love, love.
One after another, the children are displayed for the camera. These were all fathered by Koresh, with as many as 20 different women.
So you should be having another one here in about a month, huh?
Koresh and his young wives were said to believe that Koresh was divine and passed God's light to his children.
Maybe you might ask them if you can have some ice cream, too, huh? Ask them.
Can I have some ice cream?
3 of the children, like 5-year-old Isaiah here, Koresh called his adopted children.
Tell them your ABCs.
He has them address the negotiators directly.
Say hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Hello, John.
Hello, John.
Gary.
Gary.
Koresh is clearly trying to manipulate the negotiators, and indeed some of them who saw the videotape say the children's faces would haunt them forever. Koresh speaks directly to someone else that day.
Isabel, Andrade, we tried to tell you that if you would give us time to give you studies, everything I would let you know. Remember that, Isabel?
Isabel and Guillermo Andrade are hearing those words for the first time this week. We showed them the tape, a last view of their daughter, Catherine, and the very first glimpse ever of baby granddaughter, Chanel.
Go ahead.
Well, we believe something that the world needs to know. We learned the 7 seals from God.
I will always remember Kathy the way she was before she went to Waco, Texas. As a bright, beautiful, intelligent. She questioned everything. I can never remember her in any other way, even here.
Can I have my kiss? Oh, careful, that steady's ouchie.
Koresh confirms he was shot and wounded in the original raid.
Oh. Want to see one of the holes here? Here's one of them. That look nice?
The tape is examined days later by two physicians who tell the FBI the wounds are not life-threatening.
Oh, it ain't nothing, tough guy like me. It's just flesh, it heals.
Toward the end of the tape, Koresh rails at the federal authorities for storming his compound in search of arms.
It's not against law to buy a firearm. It's not against law to buy anything that they sell at a gun show. I tell you what, being an American first, I'm the kind of guy that I'll stand in front of a tank. You can run over me, but I'll be biting one of the tracks. No one's going to hurt me or my family. See, I'll meet you at the doorstep any day, you know, and somebody will get hurt. If you want to keep playing that game, I'm talking to you. Somebody's going to get hurt. God speaks to me. I have a message to present. You may not believe that. If you don't believe that, then believe this. Irrespective of God speaking to me. You see this here? See, this is my family.
The second tape is very short.
You got those tanks outside? Are you scared?
The sounds you hear are tanks clearing away obstructions to the compound, 22 days before the final assault.
You want to go out there? No. You want to leave Daddy and Mama? No. Have I been a mean daddy to you? No. Have I ever beaten you or anything? No. What's God going to do to our enemies? Destroy them. Is God going to save us?
On this tape, Koresh has the children say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Tell them to pray for you, Mama. Okay, say bye-bye. Good girl.
25 children, including all of those you just saw, died in the fire. And as you know, this past weekend, 11 of David Koresh's followers were acquitted of murder and conspiracy charges in the deaths of 4 federal agents.
Excuse me, could you take a picture of us with photo over there?
If you take off to the Italian town of Todi, but your camera just takes off,
Where'd they go?
you better have Visa Gold, because there's not a camera store there that takes American Express.
There's a great shot.
Visa Gold, it's everywhere you want to be.
It's National Lobster Month, now at Red Lobster.
Crack it open, take a bite. Lobster lovers, tonight's your night. Fresh from Maine, Rocktown too.
It's Lobster Month, just 1 month to enjoy 7 great lobster dinners and tasty lobster appetizers, all at special prices.
Special time, special taste. If you're looking for lobster, this is the place.
National Lobster Month ends March 13th at Red Lobster.
What's been added to Nabisco shredded wheat? Not fat. Definitely not sugar. And not a pinch of salt. Because unlike those other leading cereals, Nabisco shredded wheat is made from just pure, delicious, 100% whole grain wheat. So, what's been added to Nabisco shredded wheat?
Milk's good.
Nabisco shredded wheat. It's just naturally good.
When brewing a whole pot of coffee doesn't make sense, choose Maxwell House Filter Pack Singles. Rich Maxwell House coffee in one fresh brewed cup. Filter Pack Singles. New from Maxwell House.
Good evening, I'm Marianne Childers.
And I'm John Drury. Next on Channel 7, he's paid to uphold the law. Tonight, a Chicago policeman is accused of dealing drugs. Also, a huge winter storm pounds the East Coast.
And the amazing story of survival. A pilot falls asleep while flying and lives to tell about it. Channel 7 News is next. Now a program note. Next Wednesday night, ABC News introduces a new magazine program, one that goes to the very heart of the story, The Turning Point. In every story, there is a turning point, and some you'll never forget. On our premiere broadcast next Wednesday night, they were the girls next door, until they turned into the Manson girls. Now, 25 years later, they break their silence to reveal the power Manson held over them. In coming weeks, for this couple, the ultimate turning point, historic birth. And we had exclusive, intimate access to the first harrowing year for the only surviving sextuplets born in this country. Isn't it odd we always remember a serial killer's name, not the names of the victims? Well, this time, you will.
This was a human being, and I would like to remember her as she was, not a body bag.
Meet Fred.
You're going to come back next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for some more radiation. More radiation.
A tough little guy. You'll long remember his turning point.
Hi, Grandma. We're coming home right now.
She was an orphan lost in the foster care system. She fought back and last year became Miss Teen USA.
Miss Teen USA's Miss Vermont, Charlotte Lopez.
Her wake-up call for the foster care system is tough. Every story has a turning point.
Turning Point premieres next Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern and 9 Central Time. Good luck, Diane. The Primetime gang will be watching, but we'll expect you right back here on Thursday.
I will be here, and the Turning Point gang are all going to call you at home to make sure you're watching.
My number's unlisted.
I have sources. Tomorrow in 2020, Senator Robert Packwood talks to Barbara Walters about allegations of sexual misconduct. I'm Diane Sawyer in New York. Good night. Bye, Sam.
Good night, Diane. I'm Sam Donaldson in Washington. Later on Nightline, the rift between blacks and Jews. Tonight's parting shot, which you'll see in a moment, a Florida cop with an unusual set of wheels. You might call it pat roller blading. And join us again next Thursday evening for another edition of Primetime Live.
Primetime is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source. The American Broadcasting Company. ABC.